Shields last night around 6:30, and he had just gotten off the phone with President Forsey and other presidents of 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. He said it would be premature to make any promises about the coming year, fiscal year 2010. He talked to them, he told me about a long-term fix for higher education. 2010 might be problems, though. He said with facing possibly $1 billion deficit, you can't really make any promises. Yet you're making a promise. How can you keep that promise?
We will present a budget, balances the budget in the state of Missouri, but doesn't do so on the back of higher education. We'll present a budget next Tuesday in my budget address that lives up to what with this, not only this, but other agreements we're working on throughout the state. It guarantees that we are not going to make this generation of kids pay debt at the level that we've seen increasing over the years. I just am a big believer that human capital, I'm making the tough decisions in a difficult budget year. The budget I present next week will be a balanced budget, but I'm not going to balance it on the backs of higher education.
Can you give us a hint where you'll cut if you're not going to cut higher ed?
Well, I think that we'll have an opportunity next week to talk about how we lean up other operations in other parts of the state, and that's a good topic we'll all have. And I hope that many of you have the opportunity to look in on that address. But I think it'd be premature right now to go through the rest of the address. Yeah.
Governor, Missouri is currently ranked about 47th in per capita higher education funding. This won't make that ranking any better, more than likely. And you expressed in the campaign an interest in trying to make that better. How will you try to do that in the coming years?
Well, I mean, basically, with the budget challenge we have now, this is a big step. I mean, we're turning the corner here and saying that for the first time in a long time, that pool of money that goes to higher education is not the place we're going to go hunting for the cuts. And I'm just very pleased that we've been able to balance a no tuition increase with that. It gives us a win-win on both sides. So I think this begins that process, Tony. I think that the first step you take somewhere is to in essence, slow down what has been cuts. But I should also say that not only the provost and the chancellor and the president here, but other institutions across the state over the last 5 to 6 years have really had to make some difficult decisions. They have been faced with budgets that are below what they've had in years past, and they've made those decisions. We as a state, as President Forsey indicated, in essence, offloaded our budget challenges over the last few years to higher ed. They've had to make some difficult decisions here, and I just have been impressed in my briefings by the tough choices they had to make over the last 5 or 6 years, and thought that as we started this new budget, it was important to make this agreement so that we can help families, but also to acknowledge the leading up that has already occurred in our higher education institutions.
Governor Nixon,
yes.
Will funds be withheld from fiscal year 2009?
We'll make, all of my budget announcements will be made as far as what we're doing there in the budget address next week. We'll talk about 09 and 010 at the same time. But we'll balance. They passed 09. We'll balance that with the tools we have that are necessary to do that. We're watching also the income very closely, but we will announce all of those things 9 and 10 next Tuesday.
What is the likelihood that some of our state programs are going to suffer greatly because such a large item like education is not going to see any cut?
Well, I mean, we've looked at this budget very carefully. We're in the process of completing it. We're in the process of bringing it forward. I think it's my job to balance it and present a positive future for the state. And I just did not see how we were going to get that positive future for the state if we kept having students having uncontrollable tuition increases, and higher education always concerned about having to clip back what they've built, the outstanding education institutions that we have. Certainly there will be some other parts of government and services that have to feel a little of the pruning knife of the time, but it's not higher education's time. We've got to invest in these kids. We've got to invest in these institutions. The future we've got is out there getting people for 21st century jobs. The future we have is having the best workforce in America. And the only way to have that is to have the education institutions that provide those competitive minds the ability to get the competitive jobs of the future. We just cannot cut the seed corn when we have to harvest it not so long from now.
Governor, how optimistic are you about the House and Senate cooperation?
So far, so good. I mean, you build relationships. You don't you don't get relationships by edicts or anything. And I take the leadership of the House and the Senate. We've had a number of good sessions on a number of topics, and was able to, and have been able to communicate with them, both Democrats and Republicans. I mean, so I think that I feel real good about where we're going with the legislature, and hopefully they will continue their reasoned, calm, relationship building process we're going through.
Did you discuss this agreement with them? Did you discuss this agreement with them before you announced it today?
No. Not in any detail. We've had notified some folks of what we're looking at, but not in any detail, no.
Governor, several states have tried this. Did you consult with any other governors who had tried this and then had to back away from the...
I just saw Schwarzenegger raising it 13%, and it inspired me to be stronger than him.
Did you talk to any other governors about this, or?
Not about the specifics of our budget and what we've had here. I do think that what President Forsey mentioned is very, very true. We have seen a continuing, erosion of state support for higher education and a concomitant increase in tuition and academic costs. And that's a cycle that's got to stop. We will not succeed as a state. We will not succeed as a country if debt is the large graduation gift, if moving backwards in higher education is where we're headed. And so I thought that at this moment, this historic shift, this term, this term was important to make it in the public fashion.
President Forsey, do you expect any rising costs or inflation that might require cuts to the budget, even with state appropriations the same as last year?
Well, as the Governor said, we've been at this, certainly before I arrived, over the last several years of looking at efficiency and looking at programs and looking at how we go about the business of our mission of teaching and research and service and economic development. So work underway, and certainly as we saw the storm clouds of the recession last summer, we started to take action, put issues in place like freezing the workforce, continuing to take actions on the kind of discretionary costs that are out there. So those actions needed to stay in place. That's a smart thing to do now to continue to watch this economy unfold. But I would also say that we have a role in being part of the solution to economic development and the job creation in the state. Today we achieved $10 million in revenue coming into the university as a result of intellectual property revenues because of our researchers that have created great ideas. We have a Discovery Ridge Research Park